Guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing my back and shoulder session. For these, we have 1 pull downs, 2 rows, and then in the shoulders, and also a couple of things as well. Right, first exercise of the day was a single arm high to low pull down. For these, I want to make sure that my knees are locked in. I want to make sure that my chest is against the pad and I'm using the other hand to brace, and then just aiming to drive that elbow down into my hip pocket. So I'm aiming to brace and then drive that elbow nice and low, getting a good pump in my lats. Just making sure that I don't overly rotate, because if I pull down and then rotate like this, I find I generate a bit of momentum, which isn't really what I want. So if my chest is facing forward at the start of the rep, that's where I want it to stay. I don't want to start here and then end up facing the other way. For these, just big stretch in the lats, I like focusing on the height of my elbow rather than returning the cable of the machine to the starting position. I find if I just think of letting my arm go up, then it just kind of, I lose tension and I don't get as good a connection in the exercise. Whereas if I focus on the height of my elbow, I know it looks the exact same, it is the exact same, but I find if I focus on the height of my elbow and get my elbow above my shoulder, I find I get a far better stretch in my lats, and I can keep a connection with the exercise the whole way through, rather than just getting a big squeeze and then just letting the cable return to the starting position. Right, on the exercise number 2, which was a seated row. For these, you just want to brace your core enough so that you don't end up completely hunching over. You're going to end up leaning forward slightly, but if you don't brace your core, you're going to end up having your shoulders collapsing forward. So brace the core, full stretch in the shoulders, then drive the elbows back, making sure you go to complete failure. You could see there one of the reps, the last rep was really slow, just making sure to get those elbows back. Right, in the rowing variation number 2, which was another seated row, but this time on a machine. You can see here I would adjust the chest pad, the seat pad, and then obviously the weight as well. And there's actually another weight on this as well, which has like a 5, 10, 15 pound increment. You need to check that as well, because if you change the weight and you think you're getting a PB, but last week you had it on like a 15 pound increment and this week it's on 5, you need to check that as well as the actual weight stack. Same as the other 2 exercises, using straps, just aiming to get those elbows back, keeping my chest on the chest pad, because otherwise I'm going to end up using my lower back and then coming off the chest pad. Take the sets of failure, focus on getting those elbows back. You can see here as well, I'm focusing on squeezing those shoulder blades together. And yeah, that's really it. Just drive loads and loads of intensity, and bring as much intensity into every set as possible, especially when you're on a machine, because you don't have to focus as much on the technique, because the technique's half done for you by the machine. You need to focus on bringing that intensity. Obviously, intensity is going to be the main driver of muscle growth. You can give someone any program, to be honest with you, and they're going to look completely different than someone else. Obviously, genetics and food is a massive part of it, but another part of it is going to be the intensity you bring to the session. Then on the lat pullovers, once again, focus on the height of the elbow rather than simply going back to the starting position. I find if I focus on the height of my elbow and get my elbow up above my shoulders, I find I get a far better connection in my back, rather than simply just going back to the starting position and then focusing on pulling the weight down. So you're going to find out what works best for you, but I find that's what works best for me. Each person is going to need different cues, but that's what I find works well for me. So you can try it if you want. Now on the shoulders, first exercise for shoulders was Smith machine shoulder press. Smith machine shoulder press. For these, I don't know if anyone else finds this, but when you use a Smith machine, move the bench about 1 inch, and it feels like you've moved about 10 foot because it's now in the wrong position again. A few warm-up sets, and then into the first working set. Excuse the crown of my head. When I'm doing shoulder press, especially on a Smith machine or a machine, I want to focus on keeping my elbows pointing towards the ceiling, the same way I would with a dumbbell or a barbell. I don't want my elbows to come back and then feel like I'm nearly doing some weird form of incline bench pressing, because obviously when you're using a Smith machine, you could push like this and then the weight will gradually go up. Whereas I want to think of keep my elbows forward and pressing as if I would if I had a pair of dumbbells, because that is the best way, in my opinion, to press, rather than jarring your shoulders, because then you're probably lifting a weight that's too heavy and you're just using the machine in order just to heave the weight up, rather than doing the exercise the way we actually want to do it. Right, now on the machine lateral raises. Machine lateral raises is really simple. Just get those elbows under the pad, slow and controlling the way up, slow and controlling the way down. Take the sets to failure. You can see here as well, my traps don't shrug up, so I'm focused on keeping my elbows as low as possible for as long as possible. Eventually, obviously, they'll come up in line with my shoulders, but I don't want to think about just getting the weight up as quickly as I can, because then I'll end up shrugging the weight up. Then on to cable exercise. Then on the lateral raise exercise number 2, which was a cable lateral raise. For these, once again, I want to set the machine up. This is me just not being able to find the cuff and then realizing that I had it the whole time. Cable lateral raises, what I'm aiming for is to set the machine up to just the height at which my natural path of motion. So my natural path of motion for lateral raises is just going to be where my hand naturally falls. So like mid-thigh, mid-quad. And then from here, performing the reps as normal. But if I set the cable too low, I end up out of my like natural path of motion and it's not as comfortable. I don't get as good a connection with my shoulder or the lateral head of your shoulder. But just try it, see what works for you. And then finish it off session with rear delt flies on the pec deck or reverse pec deck. For these, I'm aiming to push my hands as far away from me as possible. I'm making sure that I don't pull my shoulder blades together because then my upper back is taking over the lift. So push my hands as far away from me as possible and then keep my hands as far away from me as possible, keeping as much distance between my hand and my shoulder. So if I start here, then I'm aiming to really pull back, aiming to get that weight back without squeezing the shoulder blades together. So it's going to be something like if I start here, and then I pull, my shoulder blades aren't squeezing together. Whereas if I just go like that, then my upper back's going to take over the lift and my rear delts aren't doing as much work. You can see here my shoulder blades don't overly squeeze together, which means then it allows my rear delts to do more work without my upper back taking over. Right guys, that brings it into today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. Subscribe to the channel. Cheers.